President Trump's frustration with Vladimir Putin continues to boil over. And he continues to say things that over and over give vent to his frustration. He writes things, he says things in front of the camera. And I think a lot of this is due to unrealistic expectations that President Trump has set for himself. And perhaps even those on his staff have also led him to have unrealistic expectations. The results of this are going to be leading to a direction which I think is decidedly bad for Ukraine. And unfortunately, Trump is not the only one with unrealistic expectations, but then this also involves lots of other people. It involves people in Ukraine, people in Europe, and obviously people in Russia as well. And each of these independent agents is responding to Trump in ways that suit their preferences. But as we're going to see here, there is always, as the case is, this leads somewhere. And it's decidedly not good for Ukraine. Let's just check in, kind of understand a little bit of, get a running start at how we got to the point that we're in. And I think we're going to have a pretty good idea where things will go from here. Now, you may recall, of course, that in the 2024 campaign, going all the way back to, I think, early in 2023, Trump first made that bold declarative statement, I will have this war over with in one day. If I'm get elected here, it would never have happened if I had been in office, but it did. And so if I get elected, it'll be over in one day. And then after he won the election in November of 2024, he adjusted that to say, actually, I'm going to have it over before I even take office. Somehow I don't know, thought he would be talking to people behind the scenes and he would bring it all together. Who really knows? That's what he said. Obviously didn't happen. Then he gets into office and now they start talking about what they're going to do. Curiously enough, after all those declaratory statements in his inaugural address, the word Ukraine was never mentioned. So kind of like fell off the radar. Then shortly after he came in, another couple of weeks, I believe, before he finally picked that up and he starts talking about it. Now that he's trying to start moving into the situation to try to get it resolved, he brings in Keith Kellogg, former general, initially puts him in charge of the Russia-Ukraine front altogether. Later on, he would reassign him to only the Ukraine side of that. But Kellogg went on and said, yeah, we're going to get this done in 100 days. And then subsequently to that, they start saying, well, maybe, I hope it's over in 6 months, he said. He was asked once at a press conference, and somebody said, would this be resolved by 6 months? And he said, oh, no, I don't think it'll take that long at all. And then now here we are rolling past 4 month time, and the frustration is boiling over. And therein you see where some of the problem is going to lie, because if he thought he was going to have this over in a day or even before he gets into office, the sides continue to move further apart. And I think part of his frustration is that Trump fancies himself as this strong force of personality that can bend people to his will. He's the master negotiator and all this kind of stuff. And now he sees that he can't get anyone to bend to his will. He can't get Volodymyr Zelensky to do what he wants. He can't get the European leaders to do what he wants. And he definitely can't get Vladimir Putin to do what he wants. And then I think now you're seeing the frustration. And this has all led up to kind of a big famous explosion just passed over the weekend, which is kind of where this current round started when Trump was getting ready to get on Air Force One to come back home. And someone asked him what the status is of the Russia-Ukraine negotiations.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him. But he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay?
You talked before about putting more sanctions on Russia. Is that something you're considering more serious?
Absolutely. He's killing a lot of people. I don't know what's wrong with him. What the hell happened to him, right? He's killing a lot of people. I'm not happy about that.
And you know, because we've shown this in a couple of episodes already, like hours after he made that statement, he comes on and says, or he writes that Putin is completely crazy. And, you know, all of these really strong statements and casting a lot of negative light on Vladimir Putin, who keeps saying, I have a really good relationship with, but now it's like he's throwing him under the bus in a big way. Well, one of President Putin's senior advisors, a guy named Yushakov, was asked on television earlier today, what do they think about all this emotion?
По поводу того, что это не что иное, как временная передышка для украинских военных, больше ничего. И мы считаем, что наша цель все-таки это долгосрочное мирное урегулирование. Мы к этому стремимся. Мирное урегулирование, которое учитывает законные интересы нашей страны, наши озабоченности известные. Вот какие-то такие шаги, которые имитируют мирные действия, мне кажется, они никому не нужны в данной ситуации.
And it continues on after this. So you see, though, the Russian side, and you're going to see this throughout this episode here, they're trying to downplay a lot of this. They're trying to say, well, I get it. He's an emotional guy. He's really frustrated for a lot of things. We listen to him, but, you know, we're continuing on with what we think is the best. And several other sources have indicated that the Russian side is at least glad that they're talking to the American side, because obviously during the entire Trump administration, it was from the time of the war started, was completely shut off at the highest levels. So Russia's trying to not give in to what Trump is saying and not to inflame it further. They're not firing rhetoric back for rhetoric at the official level. But then here, just last night, there was some additional comments where more of frustration was put on Truth Social by Trump, where he said that what Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have happened already to Russia. And I mean, really bad. He is playing with fire. Now, if I said that at the official level, at least at the government level, and Putin has not fired back, Dmitry Medvedev, who is also one given to a lot of emotion, did. And in his reply, he said regarding Trump's words, and this came like, I think, less than 3 hours later, regarding Trump's words about Putin playing with fire and really bad things happening to Russia, I only know of one really bad thing, World War III. And I hope Trump understands this. And so you have to really to understand that everybody is playing to what's important to them. You have the Russian side is unequivocally focused on winning this war. They are going to secure their security on the eastern flank by whatever means necessary. If they can get it through negotiations, as they have repeatedly said, that's what they will do. Sorry, I keep getting distracted by Cody. Just get still. Live TV. What do you do? Also, by the way, if you like this kind of distraction, not quite like you see on other channels, be sure and like and subscribe, by the way, because that helps us out a lot. I really appreciate you doing that. Now, without further ado, let's get back to where we were. Sergei Lavrov. He was also asked about the issue with Trump and his emotional, etc. And what you see about Lavrov is that he doesn't just put the blame on Trump. He doesn't just go after him, but he says maybe there's other reasons for his frustrations.
Regarding what you call changes in the statements of President Trump, we perceive this as changes in the statements of President Trump. Changes in rhetoric happen to many world leaders. For example, until recently, all of Europe was shouting in unison, "No ceasefire, pump Ukraine with weapons. That's what needs to be done, and defeat Russia on the battlefield." What are they shouting now? Immediately cease fire without preconditions. At the same time, Macron adds that they will not stop supplying weapons to Ukraine during the very ceasefire they are demanding from Russia. As a man who does not like obstacles on the path to achieving noble goals, he develops certain assessments, a certain rhetoric. The main thing here is not to focus on the rhetoric, but to ensure that Europe stops sabotaging the movement toward peace.
Now, let's examine that last comment there, because, listen, it's every nation is going to say what it wants to. Every nation is going to put forth their version of an interpretation of events that's most beneficial to them. And very oftentimes, this happens with every country. Russia's no exception. That very often that they'll slant things badly in ways. They'll leave out a lot of information or just flat out make stuff up that gives benefit to their side. But the Russians, and I have to say this, I think I've been tracking this war, nonstop for all 3.5 years or so, almost of it. And it's very clear that when you take all the different sides, there is at least less of the spin on the Russian side than there is on any other side here. And this is one of those moments where a lot of the things that the Russians say, it turns out to be accurate. And by the way, it's easy to be accurate when the actual truth benefits your side. So there's, you don't have to embellish things sometimes. And I think this might be one of those cases where Lavrov at the end said, it seems more like the European side is trying to sabotage peace. And he makes the very valid question where you have in the first part of this war, you had the Western side and the Ukraine side and the American side during the Biden administration saying, we're not stopping anything. We're not going to have a negotiated settlement in Istanbul in April 2022. We're not going to stop fighting after their successful counterattacks in late 2022. And even into 2023, after their offensive utterly failed, they're still saying, we're not going to stop anything. We're still going. We want the 1991 borders. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep giving Ukraine everything it needs to continue fighting for as long as it takes. And then all of a sudden, magically, like about a 45-degree angle change at full speed with no explanation ever provided. Now, all of a sudden, they want a ceasefire. Not only that, they want an unconditional ceasefire. So after everything that the cumulative West had tried to do to Russia failed, did not bring them to their knees, now all of a sudden we trying to rhetorically make Moscow do what the West wants by just telling it, stop fighting. Without any conditions, and then we'll figure it out. Then we'll talk later. Now, whose side would that benefit? Obviously, it wouldn't benefit the Russian side because they have all the momentum on their side. They have all of the fundamentals on their side, all the ammunition, the weapons, the manpower, etc. So there's no reason why they would want to, but that doesn't seem to have bothered the West any to continue to request this and to continue to put things in the path that Trump, since his time come in, to his credit, is trying to end the war. His whole focus has been to end it. So I think a lot of the frustration you're seeing spew out of the Trump side is that he just wants this to be over, and he's frustrated at Putin, but he's got to also be frustrated at Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, and definitely Volodymyr Zelensky, who he also called out in one of his previous Truth Socials. When he was blasting Putin, he also told Zelensky, you got to be quiet. Well, here's the problem. I mean, there's a number of problems with it, but one of the big ones that we got to take a look at is that Trump is making it look like that he is not in control of anything. If he can't get Zelensky to be quiet, if he can't get Putin to do what he's asking, if he can't get the European leaders to do what he wants them to do, then what can he do? And it's going to start making people across the board, adversaries and allies alike, start to think, maybe he doesn't have all that much influence. Maybe we need to find a way to bypass. The problem for Trump is manifested or magnified, and that even in his own camp, he has lots of problems. Now, we know for sure that there are a number of people, at least in his inner circle, who say, yes, we need to just end this. We need to get out of this deal. There's no victory for us to have here. They started going on a path for a while that this is Biden's war. It's not mine. I didn't start it. I wanted to get out of it. He was doing that a lot. They said, we're days away from walking if we can't get a deal. And then all of a sudden that went away. It seems that inside there must be a battle going on for his influence within his inner circle. And is on current display. Last night in the Wall Street Journal, letter to the editor was published by Senator Lindsey Graham, who said, I have coordinated with the White House. And that's one of your clues right there on the Russia sanction bill since its inception. The bill would put Russia on trade island, slapping a 500% tariffs on any country that buys Moscow's energy products. The consequences of its barbaric invasion must be made real to those that prop it up. If China or India stopped buying cheap oil, Mr. Putin's war machine would grind to a halt. The sanction bill has 82 co-sponsors. As Senator Thune said last week, if Mr. Putin continues to play games, the Senate will act. I'm hoping for the best, but when it comes to the thug in Moscow, we should all prepare for more of the same. Listen, that's not a minor issue right there. When you're talking about a 500% tariff, and you're going to try to throw it on the likes of China, okay, we've already still in a trade war with them. There's still 30% tariffs that are active as we speak. We're trying to figure some other stuff out, but now then you're wanting to throw potentially India under the bus as well. Now, come on. We have, since this war started because of the malpractice of the Biden administration, we did everything necessary to shove China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea into an active engagement, whether it's in some cases an outright security arrangement. an actual treaty. Okay, they weren't before, but now we put them in a box here. Now then, you want to take India, who we've been courting a lot for a number of reasons, economic and also geopolitical, because we want to have some kind of distance between India and China. They have their own issues there. You want to do something like this, it's going to put India and China together? I mean, we got to think beyond the end of our nose. Number one, the issues have utterly failed. And the fact that the U.S. Senate leading voices continue to put forth prospects of policies that have been an utter and complete disaster. Not just did it fail to cripple the Russian economy, it's also failed to protect our own side. And all these boomerang results of the sanctions have harmed Europe much more than it harmed Russia. I mean, it's just a matter of accounting. You can look at the numbers. It's self-evident that it has not worked. So why then do we want to go down this path? Why then, when Biden came in, and bear this in mind for what's about to follow, when Biden came in and said we were going to have crippling sanctions on Russia at the beginning of this war, we're going to bring their economy to its knees, we're going to have price caps on energy, all kinds of stuff to deprive it of oil. That's what we tried in the first, and it obviously didn't work at all. So now then that's what Senator Graham wrote last night. Now one of his colleagues last night on Sean Hannity went on, Senator Mullen from Oklahoma seems to have forgotten all the failures of the Biden side.
I think they need to take off the handcuffs of Zelensky and let him unleash hell inside of Russia, funded not by the U.S., but by Europe.
Sean, you're absolutely correct. The president has been very patient with Putin. And I get it, the reason why he did. I mean, we saw how much patience Reagan had with Gorbachev. At the same time, he's trying to clean up a mess that he didn't start, right? I mean, this war would have never taken place if Trump would have been in office, but now it is. He's been very clear, Sean, from day one, he wanted the killing to stop. He's tried to work with Putin. His patience is running thin, and you and I know President Trump personally. When he's done with you, he's done. Lindsey Graham, myself, and a few other senators led this sanction bill. We have been holding off because President Trump wanted time to negotiate with Russia. Because the negotiations are breaking down, I can see as soon as we're ready to move this bill forward, we'll be able to pass this in the Senate, we'll be able to pass it on the House, and then President Trump will sign it. The sanctions will cripple Russia's economy.
Oh, gracious. I mean, why does he even have to use that same phrase? These sanctions, as despite the other 17 rounds between the United States and Europe, this one is going to cripple their sanctions when everything that we've done before didn't. This one will, even though Russia has been working very hard to sanction-proof its economy. There was Putin had some meetings with many of his economic leaders in his country, business leaders, et cetera, to try and basically make them even less susceptible to these kinds of things, and then, in advancing their markets in other directions, in places that are friendly to Moscow, that are immune to pressures from the United States, et cetera. You keep pushing Russia and other people in directions that are antithetical to our own interest long term, not just in the situation right here. And you see the arrogance behind what he was saying there. I mean, he's putting this in terms, it's like it's an adult or a parent at a little recalcitrant teenager, a little high school sophomore or something. He's just misbehaving, and he's trying to be patient. Trump is trying to be patient with these people. He's trying to work a deal, but if he doesn't, we're going to take them out to the woodshed. We're going to put a little discipline on them. That's just absurd, because it's been tried, number one, but number two, we don't have that kind of leverage. And when you see something has not worked for now going into its fourth year, right? Actually going deep into its fourth year now, what rationale would lead you to want to say, let's double down on that when it's harmed our side already? But yet that's where we are. So part of this frustration with Trump is self-inflicted. And you see this dynamic of this pressure going on inside by what Trump is doing on the outside. All these people on the inside of his circle. Some people had, and I obviously am one of these, that said that if he had listened to these group over here that said walk, if he had listened to if he had acted rather on what Secretary Rubio said on the 18th of April, we're days away from walking if we can't get the sides together. Well, obviously they have expanded apart even further. So that would seem to have triggered that commitment to a walk then. Had he done that, then he would be in much better shape now, because then genuinely he wouldn't own it, because it's not, I tried to bring you guys together. He could have justly said that and then walked in. Now then, with the United States out of the picture here, now you put all the onus on Europe to either put up or shut up. And you see right now, they don't want to have to put up or shut up. They want to keep Trump, and they're trying to pull him into their circle as well, so that they stay united on the West side, which is not leading to peace. That's one of the other things that Lavrov said, which I think there's justification, that the Western side doesn't want peace. They don't want an end to this war. It's pretty clear the Western side doesn't. And if you need any proof of that, just look at what German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said here recently, when he said on German television that this means that the Ukraine can now defend itself, including strikes on military targets in Russia. Until recently, it could not do this, and until recently, with very few exceptions, it did not do so. Now it can. It can hit military targets in the rear, and this is a decisive qualitative change in Ukraine's warfare, the German chancellor said, and specifically lifting long-range fires. And I mean, let's just first of all just look at the reality and the tactical implications of this, the strategic implications. Number one, Russia has an extremely robust air defense system, both the ability to shoot down missiles as well as electronic warfare capacity to knock them off course, etc. Some things get through. There was another big over 100 drone attack from Ukraine against Moscow overnight. Some of them got through, or some of the air defense missiles got shot down and actually hit some buildings in Moscow. So there is some success on that. They did, in fact, get some of those through this time. But the robustness of the Russian air defense missiles, and you've seen in recent waves, all of them got knocked down. There's sometimes where none of them get through at all, or they get intercepted far enough out that they don't fall on buildings, they fall in the open area, etc. So that tells you that Russia is very strong in its ability to knock these things out. So even if all of the TARS missiles from Germany, all of the ATACMS from the United States, all of the Storm Shadows from UK, the Scalps from France, even if you put all those together, it's a relatively small number. You can't launch a campaign with it. And to have any, and I mean any kind of impact on the front lines that's going to help the Ukraine military to defend itself, you have to have a long, robust, and sustained campaign of long-term missiles. Now, that for the moment doesn't even suggest what the Russian side may do in retaliation for the direct engagement of all these four Western countries. We'll talk about that in a second. But just in terms of what it can do, what's even possible militarily, it's not going to accomplish anything, because you have so few missiles, you don't have enough to have a sustained campaign, and the Russians do have the capacity to shoot them down or knock them off course. So it's not going to have any impact at all. Therefore, you have to ask, well, then what is the reason? What I'm saying, that can't be information and news to these guys. They have to know that. They have generals that are in charge of all this stuff, and they're in classified environments. There can't be any doubt that they're being told this is not going to accomplish anything. Most of these will, hardly any of them will actually get through. And because Russia is such a vast country, those that do, it's going to be pinpricks here, that Russia has diversified their capacities throughout the country. They don't have single points of failure anywhere. They've certainly learned from history. But what it does do is it has a diplomatic impact. And it has an impact on whether Russia is willing to have a negotiated end to the war, or whether they're going to go in a different direction. That was addressed a little bit by Sergei Lavrov.
This statement by Mr. Friedrich Merz once again underscores the level of competence of those who have currently risen to power in Europe. Yesterday, he declared with such pathos that from now on and forever, there would be no more restrictions on strike range. Moreover, he spoke not only for himself, but also for France, Britain, and the United States. This once again leads us to believe that the decision to allow Ukraine to do essentially whatever it wants, at least within certain limits, regarding strikes on targets on Russian territory, was made long ago. It was kept secret. European Commissioner for European Union Enlargement Marta Kos stated that Ukraine has completed its homework and is ready to begin accession negotiations with the European Union. She essentially admits that this homework included the legislative eradication of the Russian language before these Nazis are allowed to sit at the negotiating table with the European Union. This is something we must note. Apologies for slightly going beyond the scope of your question, but everything here is interconnected. And the main connection is that Europe has once again found itself a Nazi banner to embark on yet another utterly hopeless, doomed adventure aimed at inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia.
So you see that from the Russian perspective, they're tying all these seemingly disparate things together. They see that the cumulative West, and according to Merz, that includes the United States, obviously includes the Ukraine side, but also France, Germany, and let's see, who was it? France and Germany and the UK, of course. They are now saying we are going to expand our target set deeper inside of Russia, even more than the Biden administration did. And you may recall that I actually took them to task, the Biden administration, for allowing the ATACMS long range to be used after they lost the election and before Trump had come in. I said, well, you're basically tying Trump's hands and trying to sabotage this situation here going further. Well, apparently a few were fired and not that many more. There weren't very many ATACMS left by that time. Trump comes in. So I thought, all right, well, we dodged a bullet with that one. That didn't cause any expansion. But now then, even with Trump in office, now then you see that the European side, with now the elevation of Friedrich Merz, continues to push the envelope here. And they're talking now that they want to attack more in there. So the Russians see. You're talking about expanding the military conflict, not bringing it to a close. They see the United States and the European Union. The European Union's already added their 17th sanctions package this past week. They're preparing the 18th as we speak. You see the United States with Senator Lindsey Graham is leading the charge to have a new American sanctions package. And then they see that also in the European Union, that they're talking about fast tracking Ukraine in there, and they are codifying and saying, yeah, you don't have to change your laws to do what every other European country requires of its members, by the way, which is to respect the language and the cultural identity of its minorities, of its ethnic minorities within its country. And apparently, according to what the Russians are saying, based on this European Union official here, that they're saying, yeah, we can go ahead and let you guys in without even having to worry about that. That was one of the things that the Russian side had said from the beginning was really important to them. I'm talking from the beginning, like in the post-2014 period of time during the Minsk agreements, was the legal protections for the Russian-speaking population within their country. Well, now you've seen here in recent shows, if you've been watching our shows here where the Russians are saying, listen, we're going to ensure it a different way. If we can't do it with legal terms, then we're going to do it with military terms. We will provide for the security for the Russian-speaking population one way or another. And they have said, Dmitry Medvedev has also said in a speech we showed you from, I think it was it was from early last week, where he said there's another option. There's just unconditional surrender for the Ukraine side. Everything that we have seen now, and we've been showing you, and go back and watch this from our show yesterday, where we talked about the implications in the drone war between the two sides and how this has evolved on the battlefield, and how it's not just a drone war, but it's still also an infantry war. Armor and all those kind of things still matter, but much less than infantrymen, because you can't take and hold territory without a person. Drones won't hold and take anything. They can blow stuff up, but they can't hold or take territory. You still have to have manpower to do that. And the Russians are moving forward in that. Now then, we see even today there is still continual advances all across the front line in the Konstantinivka area, in the Pokrovsk area. The Ukraine side, as I've been warning about, when Russia's opening up this border area, this border buffer zone that Putin wants in the north, they have now expanded their operations in the Sumy area, in the northwest, and in the northeast, in the Kharkiv area. They've continued. Now they're pushing further in both of those areas right now. Ukraine has been forced to redeploy folks from the eastern front, the Pokrovsk area and the Konstantinivka and the Kupiansk area, et cetera, to try and plug some of those gaps. Well, that makes it weaker over here. And accordingly, Russia is taking advantage of that. And in just the last 12 hours, they're continuing to make even more advances in the east, as they continue to do in the north. Ukraine doesn't have the manpower. That show that I just mentioned from yesterday graphically depicted how from 2023, the Ukraine side had enough manpower and infantrymen to man the various levels of the tactical front, from the frontline fortifications to the mid-level, and then to the artillery, the mortar zone, the UAV, the drone zone. Even further back than that, they had enough people to man them all. Russia had more, and Russians were making some advances. But now then, in 2024, they don't have enough people to properly staff each of those levels. And now in 2025, he says, now then they don't even have enough to man all the lines at all, even at minimized stuff, because there is a dearth of people. War is always about men, not machines, not money. So it's not going to matter if Lindsey Graham has this big sanctions package. It's not going to matter if Merz authorizes long-range missiles to hit a handful of targets somewhere in Russia. You're not doing anything about the point of contact. And that's where the war is going to be won or lost. And right now it's being lost. Now, what sense does it make for the West to ignore this reality? I get it that you don't like it. I get it that that's not the outcome you want. That's without question and even understandable from their perspective. But when you see that the crippling sanctions didn't work in 2022, and they're damn sure not going to work in 2025 when Russia is profoundly stronger than they were economically in that time. And if you think that allowing long-range missiles now as opposed to during the Biden administration is going to work when it didn't before, and that you see in just the last few days, you see hundreds of drone waves from Ukraine into Moscow, a handful get through, but nearly all the rest of them are shot down. And at least so far as what I've been able to discern before I came on the air here, I was just searching various forces. Nothing of any significance got hit, not even a pinprick. It was just apparently some of the missiles fell down, or else they were directed at civilian targets. I don't know which, but that's the only thing that there's video evidence of being hit, meaning that for the war effort has no effect whatsoever, not even a pinprick. On the other hand, you see the Russian side is getting more and more. They don't have 100 drone strike packages. They have now 350 drone strike packages. That could expand to 500 and later this year up to 1,000 per wave. You see that all the trends and everything that matters in war, economics, industrial capacity, manpower, ammunition supplies, ammunition categories, everything is irrevocably on the Russian side. Now, I can understand some of Trump's frustrations here, but President Trump is not being advised very well by the people on his inner circle if they don't scream and shout the things I'm telling you right now. Even if it's just for his own political survival and for his own political benefit, he's got to cut bait now, folks. This is what he needs to do. Don't add more sanctions on Russia and then continue to do things for the Ukraine side. Keep giving them stuff, keep giving them ammunition. It just gives them ability to extend the war and increase their casualties and increase the ultimate price of their defeat. Instead, McGregor said this many times on our show, take everything off now. Say, we're done. We are done. We've talked about this before. We've warned about it. None of you believed us. Now we're walking. We're taking everything with us. You guys figure this out on your own. I will no longer be a party to this ridiculous, catastrophic, and unsuccessful process here. I'm not going to continue to put American resources and prestige into something that is definitely going to fail. Y'all do whatever you want to do here. And now then you put the onus on the Europeans. You put the onus on Kiev. You guys now make do with what you have. If you can't listen to reason, then you'll listen to whatever calculations you come up with, and I'm not responsible for it. That's what he should do, because whatever they may want to do without any support from the United States, and by the way, that includes all of those long-range missiles, regardless of which country, they need our targeting support. If that is also taken back, now then they are exclusively on their own capacity, and now then they will be forced to come to some kind of negotiated settlement as best they can get, or they'll just flat out suffer an even faster military defeat, one way or the other. But then Trump will no longer be on the signature line for it. His frustration may go down. He may be still upset about the loss of life, which I definitely am. That'll be something that I grieve every day, and that also makes me frustrated and mad. quite frankly, because all of these leaders, especially in Europe and Ukraine, seem just absolutely heartless in their lack of concern about the consequences of their ridiculous and irrational decisions on the men and women fighting for Ukraine that are dying in large numbers every day on the front. That's just the hard reality for it. So we'll see what Trump ends up doing. We'll see if he comes to this calculation, because otherwise his frustration is going to continue to mount. It's not going to work out the way he wants to. I mean, that should be now painfully evident, not just self-evident. That should be painfully evident. And hopefully Trump won't continue to double and triple and quadruple down on policies that have no chance of producing anything of benefit to him. And of course, that's going to harm his international prestige. It's going to harm his domestic audience here, because believe me, the Democrats will be only too gleeful to jump on the bandwagon of blaming Trump for everything that happens in the Ukraine side here. And if he can't get anyone to do what he wants, then that's going to obviously undermine his ability to get anything he wants to get done on the domestic agenda. And, with now then the 2026 midterms, they're going to start kicking off here in a few months, and those battles will start. Now, believe me, that could go pretty bad for the President Trump. And if he loses one or both of the houses of Congress, if he hadn't been able to get a lot of things done through now, that he'll almost be a lame dunk for the last 2 years of his term. And I don't think he wants that. So some hard decisions are on the table right now, things he's going to have to really press down on if he wants to avoid the worst outcome. He should have already done it, but he still has a chance to minimize the damage and to mitigate against all these things that are happening right now. That's where we're at right now. We're going to come back this afternoon, by the way, at 1 o'clock. We have Andrei Martyanov. We're going to look at some of the other issues that are plaguing this war from all sides, but especially we're going to look at the claim that the Western side keeps having that Russia, these sanctions are going to cripple their economy and they're not going to be able to survive. Andre is going to explain to us some things about what's really going on with the economy and how this affects the global economy, as well as the Russian ability to continue to maintain its war and its standard of living. It's not all roses for the Russian side. You'll see that they do genuinely have some trouble, but we need to understand boomerang effects and how it could affect us. Always a pleasure to have Andre on this afternoon, a different perspective than you get from certainly any mainstream media channel. Be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't. Also, as a quick reminder, because I know a lot of people really care about this, we're on podcast. If you don't have the chance to watch our video every day, and I know some of our biggest fans are on podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, anywhere you find your podcast. Type in Daniel Davis Deep Dive. You got to type all that in there, and you'll find us waiting for you. Also, another way you can help out is to join our membership with the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Just click that join button you see right there on your screen, and you can also help us out. And that expands our ability to bring you more and more stuff. We've got some ideas about some things we're going to do to expand our brand here coming up. We'll share that with you when it's important. But a lot of this support is one of the ways we can get that done to give you even more high quality information. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at 1 o'clock on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.